People think Islam is like a buffet, you know. I like this opinion here, and I like this opinion here, and I like this opinion here. I'll take the sushi with the shrimp here. No, that's not the way it is. It's not Islam, it's Islam. We always remember that we as Muslims are Aslama, we submit to our creator. So feminism within the Quran and Hadith, I have no issue with. Anytime you start going outside the Sharia, there's a problem. It is not permissible to travel without a mahram except out of necessity. You put women in a situation where they can be harmed, and then they are harmed, and then you wonder why. The anatomy of a human being is such that men and women have an attraction. I don't know why anybody would want to put their iman on risk. Instead of really making a difference, we say, I went to a protest and I yelled and screamed and I waved a flag, or maybe I burnt a flag and woof, I did my part for Palestine. What did you do? Have the bombing stopped? We will free Palestine when we go back to the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the Salaf al-Ummah, and when we raise strength and when we speak with power. Think through reality. Don't fool yourself.
Bismillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. We're back with Sheikh Uthman Ibn Farooq, and we're here for a Hot Topics episode. It's your favorite. We've got the questions right here. Bismillah. We're going to get straight into it. How to deal with Muslim female family members influenced by feminism?
I think it's very important as Muslims that whether it's a female or a male or a feminism or red pillism or whatever it is, we always remember that we as Muslims are Aslama, we submit to our creator. So feminism within the Quran and Hadith, I have no issue with. Red pillism within the Quran Hadith, I have no issue. Anytime you start going outside the Sharia, there's a problem, because Allah knows us best. When you have a phone, if you have a Samsung or an iPhone, who knows best how to use that phone? Because the producers, the director, the developers, the manufacturer. Apple sends you a little pamphlet on how to use it. Samsung and Nokia, they all do, right? So it tells you how much water it can go and take it without getting messed up, how to recharge, how to put it in the sun, what if it gets hot, all that stuff. So the manufacturer, designer, developer knows best. They know their creation, they created it. Allah is our designer, our creator. He knows us best. If Allah ordained hijab on the Muslim woman, then wallahi it's the best for her. If Allah ordained for the Muslim man to have a beard or make salah and whatever else the man and woman have been ordered, that is best for them. So we don't believe in anything that takes you outside the guidance of the creator. So if feminism means that you leave the sharia, you leave the hijab, you leave the ahkam, then that's kufr. That's something we warn against. If red pillism means that you leave that balance of what the sharia has done and you go to another extreme, we are against that. Stick to the Quran and Sunnah.
That's simple.
That's simple. Yeah, I like simples.
The next question, Sheikh. How does one act with their parents who apostated from Islam?
Allahu musta'an. That's a very hard question, because obviously you still have to have a respectful attitude towards them. The Prophet ﷺ would encourage Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu to be respectful for his father Abu Talib, even though he wasn't a Muslim. Even when he died, Rasulullah ﷺ told Ali ibn Abi Talib, go and bury your father. So even if your parents are kuffar, even if they're murtad, you need to be respectful. You need to be obedient in halal, in the good. If they order you towards wrong, no. There's no obedience to the creation and the disobedience to the Khaliq, to the creator. But as your parents, you should love them and want good for them. So you advise them. You advise them to come back to the truth, to Islam. Give them the evidences you see in our videos with Quran and Hadith and scientific facts and historical prophecies and linguistic miracles and splitting of the moon, and tell them, how could this be without the will of the creator? So inshallah, you continue to advise them. If they don't listen to you because you're their children and they see you as young and so on, you can send them videos of shuyukh and du'at and online things, give them books, or maybe get some of the elders in your community to go and speak to them. Never give up. Never be disrespectful. Never give up. Continue to want good for them. Make dua for them in the nights. Go and speak to them in the day with hikmah, with wisdom and love and nasiha, like wanting good for them.
Yeah, very, very good answer. Very comprehensive. We have one here that's asking, can we be friends with Ash'aris and Maturidis?
Look, I mean, in Islam, we have a bond of humanity first thing with everybody, meaning brotherhood has rings, like meaning that there is biological brothers and sisters, then there is brotherhood in manhaj and aqidah and faith, and then there is the broader brotherhood of Islam, then there is the brotherhood of humanity, for example. So even with non-Muslims, we're good neighbors, we're respectful, we're honest, we have to have good character, right? Then within the fold of Islam, and no doubt that Ash'ira and Maturidiyya are, we don't call them kafir, they are within the fold of Islam for the most part. Then we have to have that love of Islam, that nasiha, that wanting good for, nothing wrong with that. But of course, we do invite everybody to be on the aqidah, the methodology of the Sahaba, of the Salaf al-Salihin, of Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i and Malik and Ahmad, and none of them were Ashari and none of them were Maturidi, and they all follow the Athar, which we call the Athari Aqidah and so on. So we can always advise them, but that doesn't mean that they're not Muslim, that does not mean we treat them as kuffar or so on.
Sheikh, one of the brothers has asked, where have you studied?
I studied in many different places, but I began my studies in San Diego, California. And then there was a sheikh named Awad al-Ghawri who was in Oregon, and I used to try to reach out to him. But it was difficult because I was in California and he was in Oregon, but he was kind of my guide early on. And then with his recommendation, I went to the UAE and I studied there with some shuyukh, Sheikh Yusuf Mish'al, and then Sheikh Dr. Sadiq al-Manna in Ras al-Khayma. And I spent a year and a half there with him every day, alhamdulillah, except for Fridays. We had durus, and it was very hectic. We used to have Fajr, Quran, and then with another sheikh, and then with him from Dhuhr all the way to Maghrib. From Dhuhr to Asr, we used to do fiqh, and from Asr to Maghrib, we did hadith. Maghrib, Isha, I'd have a break, and after Isha, I would have a sheikh that would come and teach us. I was from Egypt, living in Ras al-Khayma, teach us Nahu and Sarf and Ajrumiyya, and then I came back to the US, then I went to Pakistan, and I went to Mahad Imam Bukhari, and I studied there with the likes of Sheikh Abdul Salam Rustami in Tafsir, and Sheikh Aminullah al-Bishawari in Hadith, and Sheikh Ghulamullah Rahmati and other ulama there, alhamdulillah, in Pukhtunkhwa. Then I went and studied in the Islamic University of Islamabad. Before that, I went to Mahad al-Lugha al-Arabiya in Islamabad. I did Alfiya ibn Malik with a sheikh named Ubaidullah Muhammad Bashir and Mahad al-Lugha al-Arabiya, very beautiful institute they have. And then I went to the Islamic University of Islamabad. I did my master's in Hadith from there. Oh, and I'm still studying. I'm still a student. Inshallah, I'm planning to apply for my PhD, make dua, just to challenge myself. Not that I need it, but my mom wants me to be a doctor, so.
That's unlike brown parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
There's a question here from, I guess, hoping it's a brother. What to do when you want to marry a sister but she's having doubts?
She's having doubts about Islam, or she's having doubts about marrying you? I believe having
doubts about the marriage. It wouldn't be hot topics if we didn't have at least one marriage question.
Oh, no problem. So, I mean, look, I'm a very straightforward kind of a guy, right? Like, if she wants to get married upon the Quran and the Sunnah and way according to the Salaf al-Ummah, get married. If she doesn't, it's okay. Allah will find her somebody else. Allah will find you somebody else. Why do you want to force somebody into a marriage that they're not going to be happy and you're not going to be happy? So approach the sister with clarity. Be like, look, this is how I want to live. I want to live by the Quran. I want to live by the Sunnah. I want to hijab, salat. This is how I want to live. If you want to live like that, great. If you don't want to live like that, as-salama.
That's it.
We got one here from the sister. Remember last time she didn't have a question answered?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask it if that's okay, Sheikh.
Ask away.
So this sister's asked, last time we had one of our mashaykh from Sydney, Sheikh Farhan on here. And he answered a question.
Brother.
Yeah, beautiful brother.
I love this.
And he answered a question about women in the workplace. And this sister followed up and asked, what if a woman doesn't have the ability to not work? Or if she wants to work, but she knows that she's not, like, she's in a mixed environment we're talking about, but she knows she's not going to, flirt with the men at work, and she's not going to go for the after work parties. And
those are two different questions, right? One question is that if she has a necessity to work, like say she's a single mother, doesn't have an income, she has to work. in that situation, out of darura, out of necessity, yes, she can go work, right? But then the second part of the question, she's not going to be mixing. She's not going to be as much as she can. Not going to be going for drinks after work or Christmas parties or, hey, I'm going to make up or something like that. She keeps it as minimally haram as possible, right? Because of what we call darura. In Sharia, we have a principle of darurat, the necessities, yubih, it makes mubah, al-muharramat, that which would be haram regularly. So regularly it's haram for women to mix with men and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But then I also understand there's situations, there's situations sisters have no choice. And we're going to always be understanding about our sisters in Islam. But then she has to minimize the harm as the second part of the question comes. But if she has another way, like if she can marry a brother who will support her and let her focus on her children and the tarbiyah of her household, then she should. Then she shouldn't be like, I just want to be independent. No, that's not the way Allah has created us. A woman is an essential part of society. She's the most important person in the ummah. Why? Because she raises the ummah. She gives the tarbiyah. But if she's out at work, who's going to, daycare is not going to teach those kids. TV is not going to teach those kids. So if there is no other way, then yes, she has to. Allah protect her and make it easy for her. And as soon as she can find a different way where she doesn't have to leave her natural role, then she should find that way and live properly.
Would it be fair to say that for a sister in that situation, it would be a higher priority to try and find a spouse that could provide for her than to find a higher paying job, for example?
100%. Yes. And again, sometimes the Western media makes things appear the way that they're not, right? When you look at the Me Too movement, I think that was a great wake-up call to show how many women are being harmed in the workplace that the Western society had originally hidden.
That's right.
Right? Because all these actresses that you were seeing, like, oh my God, she's so powerful, she's so rich. You don't realize how Weinstein was doing to them, for them to be in that situation. And very famous people that came out that were harmed by that monstrous guy and Epstein. Kind of funny, they're all Steens. I don't know what that is, but anyway.
There's no religious denomination.
I don't know. I must be kind of imagining things.
We'll speculate.
Yeah, I don't know. The noses matched. I don't know what it was anyway. So the point there being that you put women in a situation where they can be harmed, and then they are harmed, and then you wonder why, right? Until today, this goes on, right? And the reality is the Sharia protects against that. So if a sister can find a good husband, a loving husband that can guide as a good Muslim and provide, that should be a top priority, because that would let her focus on what Allah has naturally created that mother for. Nobody can raise a child like a mother, right? I mean, even if you look at biological factors, I mean, can you breastfeed a baby? No formula milk in the world is like a mother's milk. That's right? So if the mother's like, I don't want to breastfeed my baby, I want to go to work, then that child is not getting the nutrition that they need. And the loving touch of a mother, as doctors tell us nowadays, just even if the mother just touches the body of the child, it develops the brain. It gives that physical, not just emotional, that physical development that a child needs. So the mother's like, daycare, throw it, and put them in front of a TV all day. Then why do you want to do that?
Sheikh, there is a sister who has asked, is it okay to travel without a mahram, such as going back to her hometown, her home country that she hasn't seen her family in such a long time?
It is not permissible to travel without a mahram except out of necessity. So even for Hajj, as Sheikh Ibn Baz and Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen and others have mentioned, if a woman doesn't have a mahram, they say Hajj is not even fard on her. Because one of the shurut of traveling is to have a mahram. And so if she doesn't have a mahram, I mean, she should get married, so then her husband can take her. If she is married, if her children or her brother or her father or anybody else that's mahram can travel with her, great. If not, it is not permissible. Now, there are times when there is necessity. Like I said earlier, darurat, right? Let's say she has some medical treatment. Let's say maybe her father is dying and, he needs blood or something like that. yes, in that situation, she can. Especially a lot of revert sisters, because they don't have a mahram. Their father's not Muslim, their brother's not Muslim, their father's doesn't want to travel with them, or their brother doesn't want to travel with them, and they're not married, or their husband lives somewhere else. In those situations, yes, out of necessity she could, but as much as she can, she should not travel without a mahram.
I know now we're gonna get. What about the minority opinion?
Look, you didn't ask me about minority,
Yeah,
majority.
yeah.
If
That's
you want
what-
opinions, I
yeah.
can give you opinions on every subject.
Yeah, of course, but
I can
that's
give you
always the
10
question that
opinions
comes
on
back. Yeah, subhanallah.
What does an opinion do for you?
Yeah,
That's
صح.
right.
Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbid it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's it. It's black and white. Subhanallah. Yeah.
I mean, this is a calamity nowadays, where people think Islam is like a buffet.
Yeah,
You know,
صح, صح.
I like this opinion here, and I like this opinion here, and I like this opinion here. I'll take the sushi with the shrimp here. No, that's not the way it is. What do you mean minority? Do you know what the adilla is? Do you know what the tarjih is? Do you know what ta'til is? Do you know what the da'af or rajih and marjuh? You don't. So don't get into things that you don't even understand, right?
صح.
If you want to know the answer, here's the answer. If you don't want the answer, you just want to justify it, then go for it. Why do you ask me?
صح, very true. Subhanallah. I heard.
And I really blame some of these shuyukh nowadays
Yeah.
Yeah.
that have, instead of giving a straight answer, they want to just open up a bunch of answers and not say, because they want Islam to be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
It's not Islam, it's Islam.
Yeah, subhanallah. I like that one. I like that
on
one.
that one.
Subhanallah. I saw, subhanallah, one of the sheikh he was mentioning, I can't remember exactly which sheikh, he was saying if you take the minority opinion from here and here and here, you'll come on the day of judgment with an Islam that none of these mashayikh recognize.
Well, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know,
Subhanallah.
like somebody wants to take a Shafi opinion here and a Hanbali opinion here and a Maliki opinion and a Zahiri opinion here and a Hanafi opinion here, not understanding that you're not following anyone usul, you're not looking at the evidences, you're not doing it to follow the truth. You're really following your desires
Yeah.
and trying to justify it, and that's not what I'm about. So
Yeah, صح, لا.
I can find you opinions on such
Yeah.
strange things that you'll be shocked. But what does that benefit you?
Yeah, even Sheikh Farhan was mentioning, like, Islam's been around for 1400 years. You'll get an opinion on everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
you'll get a
course.
minority opinion on
because
everything.
ulama aren't anbiya.
Yeah.
They can make a mistake. You know, this is like a dog that sniffs out poop and just goes and tries to find it everywhere. You know, they try to find the weirdest opinions and try to find them. What's the point in that?
Yes, subhanallah. Khalas, I think we'll finish with this question, inshallah. How reverts / newly practicing Muslims can avoid Ahlul Bid'ah, people with the wrong aqidah?
I think it's a great question. The easy answer to that is, as Abdul Qadir Jilani, the scholar from the past who has many misconceptions, but he was a great scholar, said, Zin bil kitab wa sunnah. Weigh everything with the Quran and Sunnah. Quran and Hadith are very explicit and clear, right? I'll give you an example. We have in Islam, we have Eid al-Fitr, right? In Quran and Hadith, Ayat, Sahih, Hadith, Sahaba, we can prove it. Eid al-Adha, right? From the Quran, from Ahadith, from the Sahaba, from when you put a majmu' together, you can clearly prove it. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i, Malik, Ahmad, they all celebrated it, right? Then you have bid'ah that comes up afterwards, right? Like hundreds of years later, they're like, oh, we have another Eid, Milad, Mawlid. Like, well, where did that come from, right? I mean, for hundreds of years, the Ummah didn't know that this was a good thing. You know, suddenly, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr weren't enough for you or something. You know, like we need to have our own Christmas. Is that what it is, right? So clearly that's wrong. Where's the evidence for that, right? I mean, did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam celebrate it? No. Did Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Aisha, Khadija radiyallahu anhum celebrate it? No. Did Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Shafi and Ahmad celebrate it? No. Khalas, we're done. So when you see that evidence-based approach, you can keep away from the people of bid'ah.
Amazing.
صح. Nah, subhanallah. It's so true. Yani, I heard a revert once say the second greatest thing that ever happened to me was that I was guided to Islam. And the and the first greatest thing was that I was guided to the way of the Sunnah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, subhanallah. Because subhanallah, sometimes people find Islam, but then they
Imam
find
Ahmad has a quote as that as well. He said, I don't know which ni'mah is greater, that Allah guided me to Islam or that within Islam Allah guided me to the Sunnah. Between these two great bounties
It may have
from
been
Allah
from that
subhanahu wa
as well,
ta'ala.
yeah,
Maybe
subhanallah.
just one more question. They were talking about it before, the uni and free mixing. What's the best way? Because a lot of the youth are going through that, you know.
Of course. When we talk about university life and free mixing, there are some things you have to take in consideration. First thing is for the brothers, right? So obviously none of us should free mix, but as a man, you have a responsibility to earn halal rizq for your family, right? So if you have to go to university to be able to earn a good halal rizq, then the harms that come with that, including free mixing, you have to bear out of the necessity, the darura of obligation, the fard that's on you to provide for the family, right? Even in that case, we suggest that you do it at minimum as possible, meaning you don't go for, meetings with the classmates after school and lunch and dinners and, spring break. I don't know what you guys call it. They have a, what do you call it? There's a break here too, right?
like just summer, I think.
No. There's another. They were telling me about it.
Schoolies.
Yeah, schoolies. Yeah. if you're on the Gold Coast having schoolies,
You know where they go as well, huh?
I don't, but I figured it out. So,
Hey, some of the cameramen are laughing a bit too hard, huh?
so even as a Muslim man, if you're doing it for the sake of Allah, then you keep it to a minimum. You don't go and engage in those kinds of things. As a sister, unless there's some darura, some necessity, I don't suggest it. Even if you want to get educated, because it's not an obligation, it's not fard on you to earn your rizq. So, I don't suggest it. And if you have to, you can do it online. Nowadays, there's a lot of online universities. Every major university has an online program now that would avoid the free mixing in person and so on. So there is another solution there, right? Again, if anybody is in a situation that it's a necessity, you minimize it, right? And especially for our MSAs or Muslim student associations or, I don't know, their ISOCs or whatever you may call them, they shouldn't have free mixing. Like, they should run it according to the Sharia and so on. And brothers should be with brothers in a good environment, sisters with sisters in a good environment to protect themselves from the harm of those societies and those, types of environments.
What about with event organizers, Muslim event organizers?
Again, I think it's very simple, just like how the time of Sahaba and Tabi'un and others until today we need to keep it segregated, right? The way that, the funny thing is,
Can
not
you
just
define segregated? Because I think everyone says these days that it's segregated, but
the women and the men are very close. You can see
you
each
can
other.
see each other.
So segregated, that they should not be in the same space. They should not be where they can recognize each other and so on, right? Now, for example, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Masjid al-Nabawi had no barrier because they had no roof, they had no lighting, right? They didn't have the ability. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would tell the Sahaba that you have to stay facing forward, make dhikr, and you tell the women to leave so they don't see and mix. And he would tell them not even to walk on the same side of the street. So every measure should be taken, right? Later on, as we've seen, the masajid, they put barriers so you don't have that risk. That's fine. So if you have a venue where you can have a separate section for the sisters and separate for brothers, that's fine. If you have a venue that's big enough that you can accommodate, then you still have to make sure there's no mixing and going in and coming out. And even at the venue, it shouldn't be where they can see each other recognizably and so on. So I think people know how to do it. It's not that they don't know. It's just out of either shahwa or laziness or whatever else. But in the end, we know the fitna and we know the harms that comes out of it. So Allah protect us from it. Aisha radiyallahu anha said the women used to come from make salah and go home without even being recognized. That's how strong their hijab was.
SubhanAllah. Final question. You opened up the floodgates now.
Yeah, I know.
Last final question, inshallah.
Ask away, man. Don't worry about it.
Because the topic of university and intermixing and everything came up, it reminded me of a question that that's been on my mind from a few brothers asking me and being in situations where they speak to a sister online and they say that it's fine because we're speaking for a certain purpose, whether that be, it ranges from speaking for a work project or a university project or something like that, to I'm just speaking to her for marriage, but I just want to speak to her online for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll go to her father.
1 month or
1 month or 2 months. I'm not gonna catch feelings or anything. We're not gonna fall into haram. But
is he like something else, or how is he not gonna catch feelings? I'm just trying to figure it out. How does that work? Why is he speaking to a sister if he's anyway? So look, the reality is that biology and the anatomy of a human being is such that men and women have an attraction. That's a reality, right? You can deny it, Right? It's up to you. In the West, a lot of times they do. But then, you end up with all kinds of situations that I don't want to get explicit into. So the reality is that is not the right way to do things. The right way to do things is how you would want somebody to marry your daughter. Would you want somebody speaking to your daughter online? So would you want somebody, chatting up your sister for a few weeks? If you wouldn't want that, then you shouldn't want that for some other sister, because she's somebody's daughter. She's somebody's sister. She's going to be somebody's mother. So think of it like that. It's very simple, right? You want to marry a sister, no problem. Go to her father, go to her family, ask them. And once you have that permission, if you want to ask her some questions, no problem. You want to see what she looks like. She wants to see what you look like. You want to see enough from each other within the bounds of Sharia that you can see that there is mutual attraction. Nothing wrong with that. We're not saying go into this as one of those, surprise boxes where you like the day of the nikah, you're like, surprise again, right? Like that's not the way Sharia works. Like this is all from hadith. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiyan got married. Rasul asked him, did you see her first? He said, no. He said, you should have. So there is love, meaning a mutual attraction. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you break the bound of Sharia. Now, how much can you see there is fiqh and hadith and all that? We can get into all of that. But that is within the framework of the family being involved, proper channels, right?
Supervised.
Now, sometimes, especially with revert sisters, that is not possible because she doesn't have a Muslim father, or maybe not even a father at all, or a revert brother at certain situations. He doesn't have that family connect. But again, you can go to the imam, you can go to the masjid, you can set up other ways, you can figure out without having to go and start being like, okay, we're just going to chat for 2 months or something like that. No, because a lot of that just ends up, as we know, in haram. May Allah protect us from the haram.
Ameen.
So
Ameen.
I don't know why anybody would want to put their iman on risk. As a man or even as a woman, when you're speaking to the opposite gender, the natural reaction is you're going to start developing feelings. And that time after time it happens. Shaitan never comes to you directly about sin. He takes you. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't go close to zina. He didn't say don't commit zina, don't come close to it, because when you go close to it, it ends up in it. And we know of situations of people that, all kinds of strange things have happened because of such situations. So, if you look at the hadith of the man who used to worship in the towers, famous hadith about Rasulullah said about the Ummah of the past, look how Shaitan took him step by step. A pious man, a worshipping man, but as soon as he heard him starting to speaking to a woman, and a good woman, but again, that natural indication began until it ended up in zina and murder and shirk and death on kufr. So don't put yourself in that situation. If you have to, approach the family. If for some reason you cannot, have a person in the middle, an imam, somebody. And if you have none of that, then you just ask the minimum needed for marriage, and then either you get married or you go your own ways. None of this online dating for 6 months kind of stuff.
One more question.
We have Maghrib
One more question.
Hit it, go ahead.
We don't get you here every week.
No problem, inshallah.
You're leaving very soon.
By the way, I noticed the phone's been switched off. The questions are yours now.
And this is my question.
Ask away.
Talking about this topic, look, the whole discussion about Palestine. May Allah Azza wa Jal give them victory and protect them. I know a lot of people nowadays are very distressed by what's going on.
As we should be.
100%. And some people have taken their way of showing how upset they are by hitting the streets and protesting. How do you feel about this? A lot of people say, no, if we don't go, we see a lot of the harm that's in there, and they say if we don't go, it shows you don't have a heart.
So I want to understand that, right?
The question is about the protesting and the free mixing inside of the music and stuff.
Let's take it back a step before we even get into free mixing music. So you said that if you don't go, you don't have a heart, right? So if you do go, what change does it make? Yeah. I mean, again, I love my ummah. I love every member of this ummah. Wallahi, and when we see the images and videos coming out of Gaza or out of China or out of Kashmir or out of Sudan or any other part of this ummah, wallahi, it saddens us. And we feel the pain. And we encourage our leaders. We make dua for our leaders, but we encourage them to stand up for the ummah, and we encourage the awam to stand up for the ummah. I'm not selling out to anybody. I'm not paid by anybody. I don't care about anybody's opinion. But One thing I don't like is when we pacify ourselves with actions that make no difference. Meaning, instead of really making a difference, we say, oh, I went to a protest and I yelled and screamed and I waved a flag, or maybe I burnt a flag, and woof, I did my part for Palestine. What did you do? How many protests across the UK? How many protests across America? How many protests across Australia? How many protests across Asia? How many protests across Africa? We're almost a year to October. I mean, almost a year from the original genocide that began. Has it affected anything?
Yeah.
Have the bombing stopped? Has the government of Israel changed anything? No. They don't care what you think. Your government doesn't care. Protesting is a way to let people think they can make a difference, but the government, with their money and their interests and the lobbies, is continuing.
That's right.
So on top of that now, when the protests include things like mixing and dancing and music, is this how the Nusra of Allah comes?
That's right.
Is that what they did in Badr, in Uhud? They did the Dabka.
Yeah.
You know, the Dabka is going to get you free. If nationalism and selling out would free Palestine, they would have been free long time ago.
Yeah.
We will free Palestine when you go back to the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the Salaf al-Ummah, and when we raise strength and when we speak with power. You know, Afghanistan today, you know, I'm not saying it's a perfect country, but it doesn't have an external force anymore, and it didn't happen from them protesting or dancing. Think through reality. Don't fool yourself. You going and dancing with some, you know, rainbow-wearing person at a protest is not going to free Palestine.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
That's it. Beautiful.
My answers are straight.
Yeah.
So.
لا جزاك الله خير جزاك الله خير. That's how we need it. Wallahi, we need cold hard facts. Barakallah feek. جزاكم الله خير for watching another episode of the Strangers podcast, Hot Topics, and we'll see you guys soon. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.
السلام
عليكم السلام.